Now, we've talked about the endless uses of AI, but now AI could actually help clean your criminal record. Listen, if that is you or somebody you might know, this episode is for you. Financial Freestyle starts now. Welcome to Financial Freestyle here on Yahoo Finance. I'm your host, Ross Matt. Now look, guys, no matter where you are in your journey, you can never stop learning. You can never stop earning. That's why I'm talking to some of the GOATs in their own respective fields, and today is no different, as I'm talking to my Chicago brother, Roger Roman, co-founder of LegalEase. Roger, talk to me, baby. How you doing?
I'm good, bro. I appreciate you having me on. You got that right. I definitely am a Chicago brethren. I got to let it be known that I'm from the West Side.
And no, I wanted to keep true to what I said. I will not hold it against you that you're from the West Side, right? People don't need to know about that. But enough with which side is the best side, right? What I do want to talk about is what you got on your shirt, what you stand for, bro. Talk to me and tell the audience, what is LegalEase?
So LegalEase is a legal tech startup. It was founded by myself and my co-founder Lawrence. We've known each other for a while. Lawrence is an attorney. We actually went to school together back at Howard some years ago. And we were both on the mock trial team, so we both were like kind of chasing this legal thing. And he ended up doing that, becoming an attorney. I ended up, going the entrepreneurship route and going to California and building a bunch of tech companies. But came back full circle about a year and a half ago. He reached out to me and he said, there's an opportunity here in the legal space around expungements. At the time, I knew what expungements were, but I wasn't quite, up on it in terms of like what exactly it was. And to be completely transparent, I thought it was too niche of a market to build something around. But he was persistent. He assured me that, this is something that a lot of people come to him for in his private practice. And, there's not a scalable solution built, right? It's a plug and play thing where he's just filling out forms and sending it in. So in some states it's called expungement, in some states it's called expunction, in some states it's called record sealing. What it is the right for a citizen to remove a bad mark on their record after they've paid their fines, after they, have done whatever the judge prescribed them to do, and a certain amount of time has passed, right? So let's just say, for instance, I had a misdemeanor petty theft or shoplifting. I did it when I was 20 years old, and here now I'm 30. The time has passed. It's been 10 years since then. When it happened, I got a fine. I had to do community service. I did all of those things. And now I'm trying to be socially mobile, right? I'm trying to move up in my job, or I want to get a rent-own loan, or I want to even coach my child's football team or basketball team or something, right? And I have to go through these background checks. This thing keeps coming up on my record. It's a blemish. I want to get it removed, right? Because it shouldn't hold me back from those opportunities anymore. And that's what an expungement is. And it's a right. It's not a finesse of the system. It's not a loophole. It's not to get around anything. It's purely a right that's written into law. It has been passed by the legislature in each state. Usually when you call law offices, you'll get a secretary and they'll say, hey, schedule the time for a consultation, right? Some lawyers are going to charge you for that consultation. They might charge you $300, $250 or whatever. And then they'll say, hey, I can do this for you. It's going to cost you about $2,000. It might cost you $3,000. We've seen as high as $5,000 for this. We went to work, man. We wanted to build something that was scalable, that made sense, and we released that in July. Towards the end of July. What we've built is a platform that uses our AI agent Wilma. You come to her, she'll let you know if you're eligible for an expungement, which is the first step. Are you eligible? Once you're eligible, we generate the documents for you to submit that. We pre-fill it automatically with the information you give us. We give you explicit directions on where to submit it. In some states, you can even e-file right on our platform, so you can hit a button, pay all your fees, and send it directly to the clerk. And then we track it for you, right? So you know exactly when to expect it to come back. If there's any hiccups, we track that as well and help you get the documents right. So launched that in July. And to be completely honest, I expected some good feedback on it. I thought we would get a few hundred customers early on. To my surprise, in the first 2 months, we got 3,000 users on board. We
Wow.
launched exclusively in Mississippi because we wanted to really test the pilot out there. My co-founder is from there. He's also a state rep there. So we had a few inroads and it made sense to launch there. and launch small and kind of work out the kinks. But we had national demand, like literally every state, everywhere from California to Jersey to Iowa. Like people saying, "Hey, I need this. I want this. How can I use this in my state?" So that caused us as entrepreneurs to kind of go back to the drawing board and say, well, we can't wait. The demand is there, the product market fit is there, people want the product. We have to speed up our development timelines.
So let's talk about Wilma, right? I'm overly fascinated with AI and obviously agents. So one, you said the first step when they get on there is to one, even see if they qualify for, being expunged, right? And so one, what does that look like? It could only be a misdemeanor. It had to be a certain amount of time. Like give us kind of that
Gotcha.
checklist.
The guidelines for qualification are set by the state legislators of each state. And they're pretty much, in a broad sense, they're the same. There are some minor, some small differences depending on the state. So there are misdemeanors, there are felonies that are eligible for expungement. Of course, violent crimes are not eligible, right? So, in most cases, there are some fringe cases in California, but for the most part, murder, rape, anything that you've actually brought bodily harm to a person wouldn't be eligible. But your smaller crimes like disturbing the peace, even some minor assault, right? Or domestic violence charge. You get into an argument with your significant other, right? And you both get arrested. Those things can be removed. And this is one thing I want to make clear. Most people don't understand this. When you get arrested, when you have any type of interaction with law enforcement, and they put you in the system, whether you're charged, whether you're convicted, whether it's thrown out, dismissed, whatever, that record is remains in the system, right? So we have a lot of people who actually had an interaction with law enforcement. They were arrested, but they were never charged. It was minor enough situation where it was thrown out. The DA didn't even want to prosecute it. But then, years later, when they go to do something, they find out that they have this blemish on their record still. And we help a lot of those people as well. Those, in most cases, if it's a non-adjudicated offense, which means it wasn't prosecuted in court, it was just thrown out. It's pretty much eligible for expungement, right? Um,
Wow.
so yeah, those crimes, I think it's worth it to see if you're eligible. Luckily for us, over the last few years, there's been some clean slate laws passed, and I think we got 12 states now that have clean slate laws that have automatic expungement of some offenses. Right? I know Illinois is targeting marijuana offenses with that. In some cases, we've had people who have come to us and said, "Hey, I think I qualify for this under automatic expungement." But I'm not sure, right? And our bot can help you with that based on the details that you provide. So yeah, Wilma is very accessible. She breaks it down into layman's terms. It's not legalese, right? Like the name says, right? We kind of break it down and make it easy for everyday people to understand. Lawyers get paid to translate, and that's pretty much what Wilma does. She's not giving you legal advice. She's guiding you through the steps and the processes and giving you answers to your questions in a very plain format. She makes it plain, and you can talk to her via chat on our website. You can talk to her via SMS, and you can also give her a phone call and just have a straight up phone conversation with her, and go through that process to figure out if you're eligible.
I love it, man. Look, guys, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll have more with the co-founder of LegalEase. All right, guys, welcome back to Financial Freestyle here on Yahoo Finance. And we're talking with the co-founder, Roger, of LegalEase. So listen, one of the things I'm curious, right? You say you started in Mississippi and now you are, the demand, you had 3,000 users in the first 2 months and now you're expanding to other states. But like to an entrepreneur that's watching this, like give us an understanding of kind of like, is it some bureaucratic red tape? Like what are the barriers to scaling this quicker?
Gotcha. So I mean, the typical mindset in tech, right, is you start off and you're a pirate, right? You ignore any red tape, you ignore any bureaucracy, you ignore all of that, and you just build to solve the problem, and then you deal with that stuff later. I think the most famous example would be Uber, right? Uber had a lawsuit in every state, a few lawsuits in every state that they went into, whether it was the taxi association or the transportation department, because they just built and then they figured those things out later. That's been kind of the mindset we've taken. We've been a little more cautious, being that my co-founder is a legislator and he's an attorney, so we've made sure to steer clear of any roadblocks with like the bar association or anything like that. So in our case in particular, we can't profess to be legal service providers, right? We're not lawyers, we're not attorneys. Our chatbot is not an attorney, right? We're guiding people to do this stuff themselves. And that was probably the biggest compliance roadblock block that we've dealt with. I think that's going to be the biggest one going forward. And as long as we can kind of toe that line of not being a legal service provider, but more so a guide to empower people to do it themselves, I think we're good. Um, I'll say for most founders, right, for most entrepreneurs, um, you know, before you start a company, you should really understand whether you want to raise money or if you're gonna, bootstrap your way up, because the formation of your company is gonna be reliant on that, right? So, if you're building a traditional tech startup, you don't want to start an LLC, right? Because you want to actually go out and get investment. So you want to start a corporation. If you're building more of a lifestyle business that you're just going to kind of grow and grind and build over time, LLC is fine because you can directly pay yourself from it. It's really easy to maneuver in terms of taxes and everything else. So I would say, for the general entrepreneur, really figure out, what's your roadmap, what type of business are you trying to build, where do you want to go with it, and then use that to inform your formation. Don't just jump out there and start an LLC because you might have to dissolve it. That's going to take more time. It's going to take more money. And then, you start a new company. If you want to do a nonprofit, the same thing. You don't want to start an LLC and then try to convert it into a nonprofit. You want to start a corporation. And we could talk about that forever, but I would say do your research. I know that's a funny mean, asking people to do their research, but figure out what type of formation you need, and I think that would really help out in causing some clarity down the line.
Well, earlier you mentioned, right, you used to live in LA and well, you say you built a few startups. So one, to the viewers that might be thinking about, getting in the tech space, becoming an entrepreneur, like what are some of the things you learned, right? What are some of your biggest, success stories, and more importantly, some of your best lessons that, the next person could actually learn from?
Every lesson came with failure, man. I'm gonna be completely real with you. It's been a journey of failure, right? You build companies, you have some success. Ultimately, if they're not a company that's still here and that's producing, eventually it was a failure, right? And I think in every step along the way in those companies, I became a better entrepreneur. When I first went to Los Angeles, this had to be maybe 10, 12 years ago, around that time. Um, I had a video game startup. I didn't know anything about video games besides playing them. I played 2K, played Madden and all that. And I went into the industry completely blind. Learned a lot along the way and failed miserably, right? Then, didn't really have the success I set out. And, a lot of people, I think, in those instances, they kind of turn in on themselves and they say, well, I'm not built for this or this is not working. I think that's the time where you got to be the most resilient. Um, it's a balancing act as well because as an entrepreneur, all the motivation stuff, everybody says, you just got to keep going, keep going, keep going. But you also got to know when to stop, when to pivot, when to change, when the market is not responding, being open to that, right? Not just kind of being hard headed and bulling through, but it's a balance. You don't want to quit too early. You know what I mean? You just kind of gotta be able to read the tea leaves. So I think the biggest lesson, if you want to jump in this game, man, be prepared to fail. Don't go out there seeking failure. You go out there to be successful, but understand failure is going to happen. And it might not be your company failing, but it might just be that roller coaster of a day where you land the biggest contract you ever landed at 10 a.m. You know what I mean? And then like you get hit with something, boom, that's really bad at 4 p.m. Whether it's you lose your top engineer or you lose another contractor, all your system is down, right? Your whole platform just goes blank on the internet. You know what I mean? You got to figure that out. So be ready for the roller coaster, man. It's up and down. It's feast and famine. And if you can ride it out long enough, you'll stack up enough wins and successes that it starts to make sense. but everybody around you might not see it at the time. You might get a lot of naysayers. Got to really have that tunnel vision and really focus and go forward.
All right, so I got a question, right? When it comes to having a product and knowing how to price it, right? And so you told me that in your research from an expungement standpoint, obviously your co-founder had people that approach them, right? In terms of saying, hey man, can you help me get my record expunged? You say you've seen it, as high as $5,000, and kind of maybe the average is maybe $1,500. How'd you guys settle on a price of $150? And then also, I know you say you had like 3,000 people in the first 2 months. Is
Yeah.
that you pay $150 up front, or is it only after Wilma lets them know, your agent lets them know that you qualify to get, this
Right.
expunged?
So I'll answer that part first because that's quick. Um, After you qualify, after you find out you're eligible for an expungement, that's when you pay. So the
Okay.
eligibility is completely free. You come in and figure that out. And then if you want to proceed with us, you can find out you're eligible and say, okay, I want to go hire an attorney. That's your right to do that. I wouldn't do that. I would, go ahead and use the platform. But once you find out your eligibility, from there, we accept the payment. In terms of pricing, man, this is another lesson, for entrepreneurs. The way we figured out pricing was just talking to some of the early customers. So before we officially launched, I built an MVP. And for your audience who might not know, an MVP is a minimally viable product, right? So it was the bare bones concept of what we have today, right? We didn't have a AI agent. We had a quiz, right? So instead of the agent telling you you're eligible, we took a quiz to figure out your eligibility. Then we had a type form. We collected your information with a type form, and then pushed it into a PDF with Zapier, right? So just this real rudimentary, very basic a platform that we built to test it out. And with that, we performed hundreds of expungements in Mississippi by partnering with expungement clinics, and some of my co-founders clients came in and tested it out. But with that process, there was a lot of discovery. We call it customer discovery. We would ask questions, what do you feel about this price point? How do you feel about it? To be completely transparent, when we started, we were charging people $1,500 ourselves, right? We quickly found out that most people they weren't willing to foot that, right? In terms of using some online software, and we went down to 750, test that out with a few people, got people to use it, asked for feedback, and that was still kind of high. Then we said, okay, we'll do it for 500 and you can pay us in installments, right? Ran
Mhm.
into some rats there as well, right? And it just, we get that first payment and that second payment, all of a sudden wouldn't necessarily come through because we were doing it manually. We weren't using a third party like a client, Klarna, or buy later. And eventually, my co-founder, we talked about it and we said, well, how much, you know, what's the minimum we can go to where we still have a healthy margin and we can still make a good return on each customer, but giving them the bare minimum price, right? And that's how we landed on 150. 150, it gives us a hefty margin in terms of the business. It keeps our investors happy, but it can also affect the most people. 150 is a lot easier to swallow than 500 or 750, especially for a family or a person who's trying to be up mobile, who's trying to improve their lives and get on with it. Of course, we've had customers who can afford 500. We've had customers who can afford 5,000. But to effectively be able to scale across the country and help the most people, we landed on that 150 price. So, short
I
answer
love
to
it.
the question is customer discovery, man. You got to be willing to test things out, whether it's A/B testing, testing the price, and getting that feedback from those early customers is very, very important. And it's easy to just throw up a survey, but like call them, man, get on the phone, right? And say, hey, I'm the founder, I'm the owner of this company. Most people are happy to hear that the founder or the owner of the company is actually calling them and asking for their feedback. They're happy to give it to you. They'll tell you what's bad. You know what I mean? They'll tell you what's good. When we first launched the AI bot, I got people who say, that bot is terrible. You know what I mean? Like that, it doesn't answer my questions, it doesn't do this. And we were able to improve on it based on their feedback.
I'm curious, right? From a person that's, talks to Wilma, put in their stuff, they make their payment. How long does it take for your record to either be sealed, to be expunged, et cetera? What's that timeline like?
So it varies based on the state and sometimes based on the county. So there are counties in Illinois in particular where you can get it done in 30 to 60 days. In Cook County, it could take up to 9 months. They have a heavy backlog in Cook County. We try to push it through and get it done faster. The fastest we've seen expungement come through, and this was in Mississippi, was 2 weeks.
Wow.
But typically we tell customers, give us at least 60 days. And because once we submit it to the clerk, it's out of our hands, right? Once you
Yeah.
submit that tax, it's on the IRS, it's on the clerk of the court, who once we let it go. So if they have a backlog, or if they have a slow process, we can't really affect that. Now we can call, we can push it through if you want some white glove service, and we do have an upsell where we can kind of, push the clerks and the courts to get things done a little faster, but there's no guarantee there. So I would say at the base, 2 months, but it could take up to 6 months on average. And in some cases in Cook County, even though we haven't launched yet, this is the feedback we got from doing customer discovery there. It can take up to 9 months in some instances.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been a remarkable episode, Roger, man. My fellow Chicagoan, I appreciate you coming on, bro.
I appreciate you having me, man. Yeah, check me out. LegalEase.com. All over the internet, man. Just look for us. We're happy to help anybody.
Without a doubt, man. And that's it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you like, subscribe, tell your auntie and your cousins to watch this. And also, you can holler at Alexa and say, let me listen to the latest episode of Financial Freestyle. But that's it for this episode. We'll see you guys next week.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.
Are you ready to master the markets and, dare I say, become a better investor in the process? Yahoo Finance has you covered with our new full suite of original podcast content. Whether you're a seasoned investor picking up new trends or you're just starting your financial journey, we offer invaluable market insights and strategies from some of the most influential minds on Wall Street and the boardroom. We're also teaming with some of the biggest rising stars in the financial community for key insights to help boost your portfolio, build your wealth, and make you a successful investor. Welcome to the Opening Bid Unfiltered podcast.
Welcome to Stocks in Translation.
Welcome to Financial Freestyle.
Welcome to Decoding Retirement.
Welcome to Living Not So Fabulously.
Welcome to Trader Talk.
Welcome to The Big Idea.
Welcome to Weird Money.
From Wall Street to Main Street to the C-suite, we're your daily lifeline. Because behind every great investor is Yahoo Finance. Join us on yahoofinance.com, the Yahoo Finance app, your favorite streaming platform, and wherever you get your podcasts.